All right, we are on day 12, how to speed read people. So I want to start with something a little different today, and I want to start with the golden rule. Everyone knows the golden rule, right? Treat others as you would treat yourself. Now, I like the golden rule, but I don't think it actually tells the whole story. I think that there's something way more that we can do than just the golden rule. So I want to introduce a new concept, which is the platinum rule, which is a little better than the golden rule. And that is treat others as they would treat themselves. Right? Why would you treat someone else the way that you want to be treated when we want to treat them how they would treat themselves according to their personality traits and their values and their intelligences? And that's what today is all about. It's about treating others as they would like to be treated. And I love this quote by William James. A great many people think they are thinking when they are merely rearranging their prejudices. So today, anti-lensing, right? Not pretending, not wishful seeing people for who they actually are. Now, speed reading people is kind of I have to be careful with that one. So I just want to be really clear about what I mean when I say speed reading. So speed reading is not prejudiced. It's not manipulative. It's not shallow. In fact, it's just the opposite. When we speed read people, we are honing our intuition. We're thinking about what is the impression this person gives me and can I trust it? We are honoring others by treating them as they would like to be treated. And we're paving a way to a deeper connection. This is laying the foundation for the next level of connection. We're going to talk about 18, 19, and 20 is love and dating and relationships. And to be able to really build connection with people, you have to be able to know their needs and interests. Someone asked me earlier, I think, Michael, you were saying, I'm trying to keep straight body language and personality and everything. And I said that it's about lifting a muscle, that we're going to actually expand our neural pathways to be able to do all of it when you meet someone, to take in all aspects of them. And I wanted to clarify and add on to that answer that speed reading people actually makes your first impression easier. Because it's not as if when you meet someone, you're not trying to figure them out. In fact, now I'm actually giving you a much easier way to figure someone out. So instead of meeting someone and being like, what are they like? Who are they? Do they like me? What do they think of me? How should I talk to them? How should I communicate with them? What are their values? I'm just giving you a systematic way to do it. So it actually speeds up your first impression. In a weird way, it almost gives your brain less to do because it has a kind of a checklist to go through with someone. And that's what speed reading is. I'm actually just trying to speed up that initial first impression or connection. Goals today is I want you to be able to bond quickly doing that. I want you to trust your first impression and the art and science of speed reading. Let's do our warm-up. So our warm-up is taking some of the skills that we've learned and putting them to the test. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you videos of our interviews with Creative Live staffers, and we are going to try to fill out their matrix. We're going to guess their intelligence type, we're going to guess their personality type, just based on a few answers. So at home, I want you to pull out your workbook, turn to day 12. I have a matrix that's waiting for you. I want you to go along with us and fill out the matrix for our warm-up people. Are you guys ready to meet some people? All right, here we go. Here's the first one.
The personal passion project I'm currently working on is I try to do a different style of lettering every day using a different tool of my choice. So last week it was pretty heavy in calligraphy using a nib pen, and then this week I'm using different styles of chalk markers. And this is due to some lettering classes that I took and sort of inspired me. And I've been following this person that I know that does daily drawing. So he makes something every day. And so I committed to making something every day, even if it's just one word, to practice lettering. The high point of my day so far was getting an email from somebody who was pitching me an idea, and it was like he put in time and energy, and it was just this fabulous email to see in my inbox. The low point of my day was being on the BART train and having this woman 2 seats in front of me have a seizure and fall down and hit her head on the edge of the chair. So the interesting thing about the bad part of my day was that it actually made me feel grateful, and that all my problems, my first world problems, seemed to sort of disappear when I saw her lying on the ground having a seizure. My ideal Sunday would be to wake up at whatever time I happen to wake up, to have coffee and read the whole Sunday New York Times, not worry about having to do anything or go anywhere, and then to take a run with my dog, to come home. I'd probably shower, but whenever that needs to happen, that would happen. And then allow myself to sit on the couch and watch reality TV back to back with popcorn.
So, first of all, what I want to point out about this video is, we've talked about killer conversation starters a lot in the first few segments. And these are a couple from our killer conversation starter list. And you can see, she talks about calligraphy, and she's talking about the nib and the pen, and I don't know anything about calligraphy, but you could clearly see this is something that, she really gets her going. These are very simple questions that aren't too challenging, that really tap into someone's inner needs, that we can really read their personality just from a few of these answers. So let's try to guess more about Laura's personality. So what do we think her intelligence is? What kind of intelligence? Yeah, Erica.
Visual, spatial.
Yeah, absolutely. She is visual spatial intelligence. How'd you know that?
The drawing.
Drawing, talking about different shapes and letters. Absolutely. So that was a very easy question, right? An easy answer. What personal passion project are you working on? You already can see she really appreciates visual spatial. All right. Here are some of the clues that I heard. Calligraphy, making a new thing every day. Pitching with details. She said the high point of her day was getting pitched a beautiful pitch with lots of details, so that was interesting. Empathy, so having gratitude for this woman who is suffering on the BART train. And getting up whenever, showering whenever that happens. Those are some of the clues that I picked up on. So what does this tell us? What can we guess about an aspect of the matrix? Who wants to throw out a guess on one of the areas of personality?
High openness.
High openness, and what makes you think that?
Because she tries something new every day.
Love it. What else? Openness we got?
Low extroversion.
Low extroversion. What made you think that?
It was more just her body language.
Ooh, yes. So we are talking about body language today, and I would guess that she falls a little lower on introversion too. We're going to find out in a second. Yeah.
Also, her ideal Sunday was alone. Like, it was just
with her
totally
dog,
solo.
I think, and alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw some other hands up.
High conscientious.
Absolutely. How do you know that?
Because she's going to do this every day.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one other I think that we can get. Actually, two others I think we can get. I think we can get almost our whole matrix. Agreeableness. High. Why? You know this. Oh, sorry. I know that you can get this. You knew agreeableness. How did your intuition pick up on that?
I think it was something to do with the pitch.
The pitch.
Pitch email.
How she was pitched well. You know what was my intuition hit? My intuitive hit was how she talked about the person on the BART train. How she felt grateful and how she felt so sad for this person and her first world problems. That was a huge amount of empathy for her to say that was really affected her. Either one, absolutely. And I think we can get neuroticism too. High or low neuroticism.
She's high on neuroticism because she's sensitive. She felt kind of bad about the lady who fell down, and after that.
Okay. So sensitive to emotions or having feelings, being able to predict the mentality of another is agreeableness. So that is, I'm so glad you brought that up. Sensitivity is a hard one because it could be emotionally reactive, right, which is neuroticism. But sensitivity can also be being sensitive to someone else's feeling, which is agreeableness. I actually think she's low neuroticism. Does anyone know why? Yeah.
I kind of thought the same, and it was more based on her reaction to the person, like. Someone with high neuroticism was like, "Oh, it was so terrible," and and we had.
What if that happens to me?
Yeah, exactly.
What if it affected the whole train, right? You know what I mean? Absolutely right. The reaction, and I want to get up whenever I want, and I'll shower whenever it happens. Let me tell you, as a high neurotic person, if I go work out, I need to shower right away when I get home. So instantly, I was like, I think this is low neurotic. So here's what her personality score said. So high openness, we got. We got high conscientiousness, making a new thing every day, and very detail-oriented with the calligraphy, right? That's very detail-oriented. High agreeableness, very empathetic to the person on the BART train. We got low neuroticism. This is how she ranks, and also from the clues that we picked up. And then extroversion is equal. equal extroversion. So I guessed when I was trying to speed read her that she was also low introversion. Now, she clearly balances that out. She didn't mind talking to the camera, so that was not a bad guess. Absolutely. Her energy was definitely more low introvert or calm, very calm energy. Let's try another one. Yeah? Are these kind of good? They're kind of like puzzles. I know, it's kind of fun. I know. I was like, can I put everyone in the chorus? They're like, no, we do not have time to put everyone. I was like, oh. So I picked only a few. All right, let's watch this video at home. I want you to be filling out I hope you got a lot right on that one. Hopefully you got all of them. Let's do one more.
My dream job, I wanted to be a travel writer, and I wanted to live in a different place like every month. I just wanted to always be on the go. So I always wanted to be a writer, and I always wanted to explore and travel. Oh, describe myself in 3 words. I would say I'm kind, I'm creative, and I'm really funny. No, I'm just kidding. Sure, we'll go with that. My ideal Sunday, yesterday was pretty close to it. So seeing friends, waking up late, like being relaxed with my boyfriend and my cat, having coffee, relaxing around the house, getting out of the house and seeing friends and doing something enjoyable outside, coming home, making dinner, relaxing, lots of relaxation, reading, relaxing, seeing people I love.
All right, so let's look at her matrix. So here were the cues I got. Travel writer, adventure creative, she mentioned that a couple times. Kind was one of the words she said. She used relaxing a lot for her ideal Sunday. And she talked about her boyfriend and being around the people she loved. Those are a couple of the clues that I picked up on. So let's guess. What do we think her intelligence is? This is a hard one, guys. Okay, what do we think her intelligence is?
What was the one about the words?
Yeah, you're actually right. Yes, linguistic.
Over there.
Yes.
The word intelligence,
Yes.
that's what I call it.
Yes, you are right. It is, sorry, I just gave away one. Yes, it is linguistic. And why'd you get that?
One is that she enjoys writing. She's not only writing, she's enjoying it. And
Yep.
then the way she talked about being funny, I mean, that's an insight that not everybody can do
Right.
or would do.
Being good with words. She's also very communicative, right? She was a smooth communicator. She was able to think of answers on the spot. I love it. That was a really hard one. All right, let's, conscientiousness, what do we think? So we had, what do we think about conscientiousness? Could we guess it? Anyone? Which ones did you know? We'll start with that. Which ones were easy for you to get?
Extroversion.
Extroversion. Absolutely. What told you about that?
Because all of the relaxing part also involved the people that she loved.
Yes.
Right.
And funny, typically, right? To be funny, you have to kind of get jokes out there and put yourself out there. We're also going to learn non-verbally some of the things she did, hint that she's an extrovert. What else? She wants to be a travel writer. She wanted to move around all the time when she was younger. Yeah, high openness, absolutely. What else did we find? What else sort of struck you? Neuroticism. Can we guess that one? No. Low. Why?
Wake up whenever.
Wake up whenever, wake up late, relax, kind of hang out. I want to compare that to Dana, who we talked about yesterday, where he said housework was on his ideal Sunday list. So that would be more of a high neurotic thing to do because you want to get everything done. You want to prepare for the week, right? So low neuroticism, yeah, relaxed. Want to have a relaxing Sunday. So here are a couple of others. So I think she is high agreeable. Why? And by the way, she is high agreeable. Why do we catch that? Yeah.
She described herself as kind.
Yes. That was, I think, the first word that she said. Kind, creative, and funny. Kindness, that is a peak, one of the first things she calls herself. Absolutely. Anything else? Yeah.
Would her saying funny and then saying, well, maybe not, be an attribute for agreeable? Like that she didn't know if other people would think she's funny, so she's like, well, I'm not going to declare it.
Yeah.
Would that be?
I don't know where modesty fits or humility fits on the personality traits, but I think that feels right to me, that she was clearly you could be like, oh, I don't know, like if other people would feel that way or not, but yeah, I like that. And that was your intuitive gut, that was agreeable. That's an intuitive hit for you. What else? So we had low neuroticism we talked about, high extroversion we talked about, linguistic verbal, that was good. Wait, I want to give you a kiss. That was great. And if someone at home got that, to you too. All right. The only one I think was hard to get was high conscientiousness. I don't know. I did not get even an intuitive hit off of her being high conscious. Is anyone else? Did I miss it?
I'm thinking she's not as
Mike.
she's not as controlling her schedule just because she's more whatever kind of person.
Yeah. So that could have been a hit. Absolutely. Yeah.
Also, it was the weekend, so it was a laid back time. So I would have thought that she was low.
That's why I think the red is a little bit confusing. That's why I put it as red, because I was like, I would need to verify that one. Definitely, yeah.
So I actually thought it was high because when she was describing her weekend, she was listening one after the other. She knew what she wanted.
You're right. She did go through a schedule in her head. I like it. Okay, so there's where the hit is. Again, this is about speed reading people. So everything needs to be verified. Okay, we're just saying if we were to meet someone really quickly and they were to answer a few questions, what intuitive hits could we get and why? What are those little clues? And for some of us, we're going to spot that agreeableness and that extroversion right away. But maybe conscientiousness, neuroticism, we have to wait and find out about. Okay, and we're going to talk about how to do that categorically in a little bit. So we are here in the bond section of Path to Connection. We learned first impression, making deposits, fracking to get a little deeper, and now we're in speed reading. We learned the matrix and how to optimize our personality, and now we're going to turn it on others. And the skill that we're going to use for this whole lesson is number 17, the platinum rule. So treat others as they would treat themselves. We learned 33 different people skills rules throughout this course, and we want to make sure that we're interacting on the level that they want us to interact on, not the level that we want to interact on. How do we speed read people? There's a couple different steps. First, second, and third. We're going to go through these all in a row. I want to teach you how to read their nonverbal cues. So a lot of personality comes out nonverbally, and I didn't get to talk about this at all in my Power of Body Language course. We talked a lot about confidence and sales and persuasion. We didn't get to talk about personality and body language, so I'm really excited to share this new data. We're also going to listen for verbal cues. What are the words they use? What are the stories they say? What are the stories they tell us? What's the pacing? I think when you were picking up on Laura's introversion, it was her pacing. She had a very slow pace. She had a very calm pace. And so we're going to talk about that, how they speak and what they say. And then lastly, we have to use skills 8, 9, and 10. So people skills 8, 9, and 10, being relentlessly curious, wanting to discover what someone's personality is. Number 9, being a master listener. To be able to truly see someone, we can't engage in wishful hearing. We have to really hear them for what they're saying and see them for who they are. And number 10, being non-verbally attuned. When we show someone that we are listening, they are much more likely to open up with us and give us true and authentic answers, which helps us speed read them more accurately. So nonverbally attunement, do you remember the 3 skills that were used in nonverbal attunement? Yes, go ahead, Erica.
It's like footing or...
Fronting, yes. And what is it? Just, as long as you know what it is, I don't care if you remember what it's called.
It's the toes, I was going to say the shoulders.
Shoulders,
the torso, and top.
Yes, you got it. I don't care if you use the right words, but you got it. Yes, fronting. So making sure that you fully engage with the person that you're speaking with. I also talked about the power of nodding, the triple nod, slow triple nod if you want someone to continue, and the head tilt. I am engaged. I am listening to you. Yeah. So let's talk about the cues for each of the levels. All right. So while I'm going through these, I want you to think about the risers and the intimates in your life and see if you can fit them in to either side for their nonverbal and verbal cues. So a high extrovert, how to spot them? Non-verbally, they typically take up space. They use a wide stance, they love gesturing, and they typically are smilers. That's because extroverts are typically more optimistic and more cheerful. So you're going to see a lot more smiling, a lot more wide gestures, and higher confidence stance, especially because they're around people. Extroverts love people. If they're around you, they're around another person, and they're typically a little bit more confident. They like that. Verbally, they are much more vocal. They use a lot more words, and they are cheerful. They have a much more upbeat tempo and pace. How to optimize them. This is a little bit from yesterday. When you meet a high extrovert, what can you do to optimize interactions with them? Camaraderie. They love to celebrate with people. They love to be engaged. Oh my goodness. Ask an extrovert a master question or a killer conversation starter, and they light up. They're like, yeah, I want to tell you all about it. And let them lead. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes they have a lot of questions they want to ask you, so maybe you have to be a master answerer, right? They're like, I want to engage you in something, and so you can actually take a step back if you want and let them lead. That's a great way to engage with a high extrovert. Low extrovert. Oh, I want to show you an example. Okay. So I found this little video of Brian. Look at this. Look at this smile. I think someone said smile and Brian, right? That was the mnemonic device. Wide stance, smile already on the freeze frame. So what I did was I have a silent answer from Brian. Okay, don't even listen to the words he says. You can already guess he's an I extrovert just by seeing him from across the room, and then I'm going to let you hear the real answer. Okay.
Hi, I'm Brian.
So, Brian is a very high extrovert, right? And you can see huge smiling, super wide stance, high energy. He only said 2 words. You didn't even have to hear the words to sort of already gauge that kind of cheerfulness. All right, smiles, wide stance, cheerful. Low extroversion. So, on the low side, how to spot them? They engage in more distancing behavior. So distancing behavior is something we talk a lot about in the Power of Body Language. It's when you're nervous or something makes you anxious, and your body actually wants to physically distance ourselves from it. We can't even help that we do this. We can distance ourselves by taking a step back, literally. So you might see more introverts will literally be just 1 step back from the conversation. It makes them a little bit nervous. We can also distance ourselves by having the head tilt or tilting our head back. We learned peering down your nose in the Power of Body Language is kind of a judgmental gesture. It actually is a distancing behavior that someone is just trying to assess the situation. So they engage in more distancing behavior because they're trying to understand the situation ahead of them, and they typically have less movement. That's because when we're nervous around people, we are inhibited with our movement. Verbally, they are usually the listener and the observer. They have a lot less verbal cues unless they're engaged. How to optimize them? Take lead for them. Most of the time, an introvert is very grateful. I know that I am when I'm in survive events. When I'm a situational introvert, I am very grateful when someone else takes the lead for me in those places. Giving them space. Sometimes they actually don't want to be pushed. They just need a little bit of space. So you might want to ask killer conversation starters or master questions that are not quite as hard-hitting. Maybe a little bit less, right, to slowly warm them up to it. And allow for pauses. So I have to work really hard when I'm with someone who I know is a little uncomfortable to just give them a little extra time to think. And so I have to really harness the rules I use during my vow of silence and embrace my fear of silence. So how could spotting this be helpful? I think this is incredibly helpful because it shows us how our friends like to spend time in social situations. So how could spotting the extroversion be helpful is knowing how friends like to spend time. It's knowing how much space a partner might need. For example, my husband is an introvert, and he does not like networking events. Those are survive things for him. So we call it couple points. When I'm like, I really want you to go to this networking event with me, I will spend a couple points because I recognize that he doesn't like it, that it makes him really uncomfortable. So making sure I respect that if I'm going to ask him to go to a networking event or something that's out of his comfort zone, I really make sure that it's worth it. And how a colleague likes to interact, right? Spotting them right away and knowing how you can respect their boundaries. High conscientiousness. So how to spot them? High conscientious people typically lean in. The way that we know these, by the way, these observations, we've been videotaping and recording people and then taking their personality tests and noticing nonverbal patterns. And we're continually adding to this research because there actually is very little research on nonverbal behavior and personality type. So we notice that people who score high in conscientiousness, they tend to lean in. Now, leaning in is a proxemics thing. It's closing the space between people. And it means they're super engaged, right? When we lean in, we're like, yeah, tell me more, tell me more. So high conscientious people, they want to get more. They want to know everything. They typically are very good. They make a lot of high eye contact. They want to see you. They want to know you. Again, they want to know all parts of you. They want to take in as much as possible. Verbally, they're purposeful. They actually use less words. They're more purposeful with their words. To optimize them, high efficiency. If you're going to be dealing with a high conscientious person, especially in a work situation, they love and appreciate efficiency. They love to be goal-oriented, know what you're both working towards, and they like fairness, taking turns. Your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. Low conscientiousness, non-verbally, relaxed. The low conscientiousness, they're easygoing, they're flexible. They typically have very relaxed body language. They're usually inflate. They're very comfortable in their space. They're very comfortable with themselves. And they smile a lot more on average. They take it as it comes. They take it in stride. Verbally, they're easy laughers. You know those people who kind of giggle or they laugh quite easily? I actually love being with those people. Typically, that's because they are low conscientiousness. They just find everything amusing. Like they're like happy to roll with it. Their brain likes new information. And they can be yes people. Now, yes people, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that they typically will start with agreement. They'll typically start with like, oh, yeah, as they're processing. So they say yes, they say positive a lot. The way to optimize it, never agenda-ize them. I don't know if agenda-ize is a verb, but we're going to make it a verb. They do not like having an agenda or a schedule placed upon them. If you're working with a client and you're trying to put time limits on them, you might get pushback from them because that's not respecting the way that they like to work. Unless it's absolutely essential, you want to be really careful on the agenda. I have a problem with this on interviewing and interrogating. So sometimes when I'm with a low conscientious person, I'm a high conscientious person, so I want to find out as much as I can about them, right? And so I'm like, I go with questions, and they feel like, whoa, have we entered into an interrogation? So you have to be really careful, especially for my high conscientious folks, to not over-interrogate when you have a low conscientious person. That's not the way that they like to communicate. They love to go with the flow, have the flow of conversation. That's much more fun for them, and that might mean allowing for a little extra pauses. So how can spotting this be helpful? Expectations is what conscientiousness is all about. It's expectations from friends, partners, and colleagues. What do they expect from you? What do they expect out of the situation? What do they expect out of the event? Also, work habits and home habits. As I talked about, conscientiousness is the most important part between couples. That when there's someone who's low conscientious in a couple, that puts a lot of pressure on home habits. How often do you clean? How well do you clean? Who does the dishes? Who does the grocery shopping? Did you put that thing on the list? Those are all falling into the conscientious category. So knowing where someone naturally falls can help you with those work and home habits. Is this resonating with anyone on partners or spouses? Give me some examples. Erica, you're laughing.
Well, I mean, my husband and I are both low in conscientiousness. And so the housework, we both help each other not do it. So even in other classes, this has been a recurring thing that we really had to put things into place to make each other do it because we feed off of each other and don't do it.
I got it. Yeah. Okay. I never heard that one before. I like it.
Yeah, we joke about it quite a bit.
All right, let's go into openness, okay? High openness is how to spot them. Non-verbally, I find this fascinating that people who are high openness, they actually do a lot more overhead gazing. Overhead gazing is when they're looking at you and they're kind of looking over their head. They tend to think like, it's almost as if they have all these options in their head and they're like, where do I want to go? It's almost as if that's what's happening when you watch a high open person speak. That's what they're doing. They also like close proxemics. So close proxemics is the distance between people. They will close the distance on you. If you like your space and you have someone who's really coming into your space, it's probably because they're high open. They're just curious. They just want to know you. They just want to ask you a lot of questions. They just keep coming closer. To optimize them, they love to be entertained, right? People who are high in curiosity and new experiences, they love hearing about new experiences. They want to hear about all the new things that you're experiencing so their brains can experience them with you, right? We know that stories make our brains feel like we're there with you. So high openers, they get kind of a substitute dopamine when they hear about your exciting stories. Tell them stories and appreciate their stories. So you might have a story off with a high opener, if you're also a high opener. This happens with me a lot. So I'll be telling stories and chatting, and I'll be telling a story and they'll tell a story, and I tell a story and they'll tell a story, and we're just like vibing off each other's stories about travel or excitement because we both love the experiment. We're like getting high off of our mutual curiosity. Yes, of course.
How does the distracted show up in the verbal?
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped verbal. Thank you. So verbally, high open, because high openers can go any way with the conversation, right? You say something and they're like, oh, that reminds me of. They can tend to get a little distracted, either in their own thoughts or you tend to go down rabbit holes. Very good to know if you work with a high opener. They don't mean it disrespectfully. They're not trying to avoid the issue. They're just going where their brain takes them. That's just the way that they think. They're very curious, and they usually are really passionate about many things because they find a lot of things stimulating. Low open. Non-verbally, they tend to engage in blocking behavior and lip pursing. Blocking is when we cross our arms over our body. It's when we block or self-protect our torso. We can also block by holding our hands this way. We can also block with objects. So holding something in front of us to block. It feels self-protective. Holding our purse in front of us, almost as a barrier. That's a blocking behavior. We do it when we're nervous. We don't even realize it, to try to protect ourselves. It's almost like a security blanket. We use our hands or objects to protect. Lip pursing. So lip pursing happens when someone is not quite sure they want to let loose. So you ask a woman what her weight is, and she'll be like, and she'll mash her lips together. We do it when we're like, I don't know if I want to say it. Someone who is low open and wants to hold back a little bit, they do that with their lips because they're thinking, do I want to say anything? I'm not sure. They tend to think just an extra beat before engaging in conversation. Verbally, they're a little bit more rigid. They can be a little bit more skeptical. And they can rely on canned answers only because that's safe for them. So I want to be really careful here. The skepticism is part of their personality. It's because they want to make sure they see everything before they dive into it. So they don't mean it as a disrespectful thing. They're not trying to be negative. It's just the way that they think. It's a protective gesture. Optimizing. The best way to optimize someone who is low open is to be gentle, right? Don't push them too hard. And to find their spark. High open people have lots of sparks. They're very, very passionate. They get really, like I talk about scientific studies if I'm talking about like puppies. You know, like I just get so excited about them. So for low open people, they might have less passions, but they do have very strong passions. So to try to find their spark, what gets them going, that's the way to really optimize them. And sometimes it's also just giving more information, offering more explanation. Yeah?
I'm a bit confused, mostly about myself, because I just took the personality test and it said I scored 18 out of 20 on openness. But I recognize myself in low openness.
So that means that, so what part of low openness do you recognize yourself in?
Canned answers a bit, blocking, skeptical about people mostly.
But you have high intellectual curiosity.
Very curious.
Yeah, so what are you on, extrovert, introvert?
High introvert.
Okay, that's the reason.
Introvert, yeah.
Right, so you're very intellectually curious, but being with people makes you a little bit nervous, so you might have those canned answers. So you have two personality traits that are working to define the way that you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really special note, right? So that if I was with Michael, it would, first of all, I would have guessed that you were high introvert and very high open and curiosity. So intuitively I got that, but it would be really good that when you're talking to people to explain, you know, I might be skeptical now, but I actually love talking to you about this topic. I love researching. So you can qualify and explain, look, I have, you know, this kind of skeptical mind, but it's because I just love to find all the answers. Right? So if you know that about yourself, you can explain it when you're with people so they can understand you better. I like it. Thank you.
Thanks.
I want to show you a video of someone, actually I'm not going to tell you what he is, but we're going to watch the nonverbal responses first, and then we're going to see his verbal responses. I want you to look for the patterns that we just learned and see what you spot.
Funny, energetic, and passionate.
Okay, so we watched that on silent first. What nonverbal cues do we see right away that we just learned?
Leaning.
Leaning.
Set up there.
Easy laugher, right? We see that right away. We see overhead gazing, right? He was like, we didn't even know what he was saying, right? But overhead gazing, Wide stance. So what can we guess? High extrovert, high open, high conscientiousness. Right? He engages in all those nonverbal behaviors. We don't even need to hear what he says. Now, what he said actually backed that up. Right? His words actually backed up those answers. But just looking at his nonverbal, we can hint at, we can guess some of those things. Should I miss a hand? No? Okay. So easy laugher, smiling, wide stance, overhead gazing, which meet all of these three things. Let's talk about agreeableness. High agreeable, how to spot them. They are typically nodders and high touch. So they're like, yes, yes, I hear you, I feel you, I get you, right? We learned that nodding is a way to engage people, and agreeable people want to engage as much as possible. They love high touch. They love the connection. And that's how we engage. That's how we literally close the space between people is with touch. Verbally, they're very compassionate and very responsive. Right? They actually engage in the ruck technique naturally a lot of the time, a very high agreeable person. The way we optimize is we open up. We connect with them. We show them we want to be a team player. We're transparent, and they love being asked for advice because that's a way of offering emotional support. And that's all a high agreeable people want to do. That's how they get fulfilled, is by helping. Low agreeable. How to spot them. So peering down the nose, we talked about kind of a distance behavior. They're very into, checking out everything before they make a decision. And we'll also see a little bit of contempt. We're going to learn in in two segments from now, we're going to talk about contempt specifically. But contempt is a one-sided mouth raise. It looks like this. It's like a smirk. And typically, low agreeable people, they'll engage in the smirk as they're assessing something. Trying to figure it out. Verbally, they can use sarcasm, and their default answer can be usually no. Right? So, no. Their default answer is typically no because they like to assess first. Right? They want to see what's going to happen first. Teamwork is not their first priority. Yeah.
So if you're one of those people that mirrors people just unconsciously when you're talking to them, like you're high.
Typically, yes.
But if you could start doing things if someone's low, like contempt.
Right, and you only want to mirror positive body language. Okay. Only. Neutral positive body language. We talk about in the body language course. Are you high agreeable?
No, I think I might be skewing low.
Skew this one. Yeah. Okay. How to optimize for low agreeable. Finding common interests. That's the way to engage them with you. Keeping it neutral and letting it go. If they say something that's like a no thing or like you were kind of offended, you want to let it go, right? Because that's how they fall. That's how they think. Their first priority is not teamwork. It's not bond building. That is not their first priority. And so sometimes it's better to just let it go. So how could spotting this be helpful? Communication habits, right? Agreeableness really affects communication habits, how we like to communicate. It affects boundaries. So high agreeable people typically have very low boundaries, or I guess low agreeable people would think that high agreeable people have no boundaries. So where our boundaries are, what topics are off topic or not. And then mutually shared interests, agreeableness, what you like and what you don't like. Let's do the last one. So high neuroticism. How to spot them? Again, you got to think high neurotic. Woody Allen is like the highest of the high neurotic if you're gonna characterize someone. Fidgety, high movement hoppers. Even I do it in this course. Have you noticed? I try really hard to plant, but I have a really hard time. I like to move back and forth. It is because high neurotic people have more nerves, and their nerves literally find their way out of the body through movement. So fidgeting, touching, trying to make sure everything is okay, hopping back and forth, those nerves actually come out in body movement. That's why. Verbally, they tend to be worriers. They want to discuss one thing many ways. They want to see all aspects of it, so they're prepared for anything that could possibly happen. How to optimize? They love reassurance. They love patience. And you can also mirror or demonstrate calm. So you being calm helps them be calm. Low neurotic, how to spot them? This is easy. They're very confident, so they typically engage in power pose and launch stance naturally. They make a lot of eye contact and they love fronting because they're very secure and stable. Verbally, they are very good at balancing, listening, and speaking, right? They're there to bond, they're there to connect, and they're good at balancing and matching you. How to optimize, showing them that same kind of responsiveness, verbal and emotional matching, right? So if you have someone who's very calm and secure, meeting them on that level, it's a great way to build a connection because you're secure and calm with them. So how could spotting this be helpful? This is how you show support. Noticing if someone is high or low neurotic, that's how you can say, yes, I'm here to logistically, emotionally, or be there for you. I think Jason was talking about people in your family who might be high neurotics, that what you need to know is, they need my support. They need to be stable and a rock for them. That is exactly this. Work modes and emotional needs as well. This helps us gauge someone else's how they work and their emotional needs. So the last part of speed reading people is called the fixed point theory, which is that you should start with a fixed point and then build on top of it. That's exactly what we've been doing in all the videos. Is I've been showing a video and I'm like, what's the one thing intuitively we get right away? That's actually, I'm training you to do the fixed point theory. I want to show you the order of what's typically easiest to assess someone. So this is them ranked. Typically, it's easiest to spot someone's extroversion first, then agreeableness, then openness, conscientiousness. Neuroticism is the hardest to spot. It's usually the last one we can spot. So since we're all beginners, all I want you to do for the next few days is try to just spot if someone's a high extrovert or a low extrovert. Just stay right there until you feel like you can spot that easily. That's the easiest one to spot typically from body language and verbal responses. So I just want us to stay there until we get those brain muscles bigger. I want to practice with Leslie. So pull out your matrix for Leslie, and I want you to fill it out. We're going to try to guess her areas.
When I was growing up, my dream job was to be a college professor. So I thought that I would be teaching philosophy or maybe English in a university, and I might still do that someday. My ideal Sunday would involve being by myself, not having anyone ask me for anything, and reading the paper and taking as long as I want to sit and do nothing. I don't get that a lot, so that would be my ideal. I would say a character who is similar to me would be Monica from Friends. I've been told that I'm very compulsive. If you remember, she had a problem where she couldn't go to sleep if there were shoes left out in the wrong place, where she would have to get up from bed and put them away before she could go to sleep. I'm exactly like that. I cannot go to sleep unless everything is put away.
So, intuitive hits. Let's start with extroversion, just like I just said. What do we think? Low. You got it, right? Low introvert, right? Low extrovert, she's an introvert. Let's look at the clues. So she said she wanted to be a professor. She liked solitary Sundays, Monica, not being asked anything, and philosophy. She wanted to be a philosophy teacher. I think that actually hints. I put what I think that could help us with. So what do we think for openness? Hi. Yeah, most people who love learning in any way, shape, or form, someone who wants to be a teacher, they have to be intellectually curious. High openness, absolutely. Solitary Sunday, right? That taught us about the introversion, that she would rather just sort of be alone. Monica, what did that show us? Two things. What were they?
High neuroticism.
High neuroticism and high conscientiousness, very detail-oriented. Obviously, right. That was right away. And not being asked anything. I think that shows kind of a low agreeableness, which also showed up in her personality test. That, it's just like she needs to figure out her own thing, right? On her ideal Sunday, no one asks anything of her. Who can guess her intelligence type? Yeah.
Now, I thought that the fact that she didn't want to be asked anything meant that she was agreeable, because if someone asked her something, she felt like she had to do it. And so in order to relax, she needed nobody to ask her.
Well, a high agreeable person feeds off of helping people.
Ah.
That would be their ideal Sunday.
Finding it draining.
Right.
Got it.
Like her conscientiousness makes her feel that she has to meet it. The duty has to be met. But she doesn't feed off of it. Yeah. Who can guess the intelligence type from that? Yeah.
Intrapersonal.
So hers was, this is really hard. Intrapersonal. How did you get that? That was really hard.
Just because she was talking about goals and stuff.
Yeah.
And she said, someday I still want to do it.
I love it. Intuitive hit on that, because that was a hard one. Right. Awesome, guys. Let's do one more. Let's do Stacy, who we've met. All right, let's fill out her matrix.
My dream job when I was growing up was to be an actress. I wanted to one day win an Oscar for some sort of movie. I really was aiming for that, and Tom Cruise was my inspiration, which is ridiculous.
The acting part, is any of that still true?
And so I feel like the acting part is still a little bit there because I do think it has led to like my creative goals and what I want to do, and that's sort of a reason why I started to write a musical, because I still have that little bit of a bug of wanting to perform in some capacity or to act in some capacity. So I do think I have it deep down inside, and if you've ever seen me sing karaoke, you know that it's still there. My favorite thing about my job would definitely be the people. Like, I just love just interacting with everyone here. Like, we all are very passionate about what we do, so I feel like you feel that energy from other people that you are able to really connect and go, like, feed off of each other. And I think that's been what makes it so exciting to work here. Is just, I don't know, it's a good experience. What I don't like about, I guess, Dayton, Ohio, is there was some sense of like staggering like limitations. I felt that I wanted to go somewhere that was a little bit more open with culture and had some more art and, you know, a lot more going on than Dayton. Not that Dayton doesn't have anything going on, but I felt like coming out here to Oakland and San Francisco gave me more opportunities to be able to see something different, you know. My favorite thing about my job would definitely be the people. Like,
All right, so let's look at Stacey's matrix. So I think we actually can get most of her things. So let's look at her clues. Performer, some creativeness, working with people, musical, goofy, loving, because we learned that she wanted to do Keanu Reeves' musical. So what intuitive hit extroversion? What do we think? High, right? We saw all those cues. She was an easy laugher. She was kind of gesturing, loose body language. Yeah, absolutely. What was the next one that you think that we can get?
High openness.
High openness. And what made you think that?
The gazing.
Gazing, yeah. A lot of overhead gazing and her desire to try new things, where she's like, Dayton, Ohio didn't have a lot of new stuff. I forgot the order that I put these in. So I said agreeableness. Why agreeableness? And she actually is agreeable, highly agreeable. Yeah.
She loves teamwork, people, groups.
Absolutely. What's her intelligence type?
Audio, musical.
That's actually a very good guess. I think it's her secondary one. But what Maggie just said was her favorite thing about her job.
Interpersonal?
Interpersonal, absolutely. And we're going to see that again and again, actually, in her answers. I think audio musical is her second, right? She talked about karaoke. She talked about singing Keanu the musical. What else do we see? Openness, neurotic. Oh, so we have high open, conscientiousness, neuroticism. What do you think? Yeah.
Well, she was easy to laugh.
Yes.
So that's why I thought the conscientious was low.
Mm-hmm. Equal openness. So actually her personal mission statement, which we're going to learn about later, clearly pushes her out of her zone. And she's actually equal conscientiousness. Right? That's why it was a hard one to get. I put it in red. And low neuroticism. How did I get that? How do we know that? Anyone know? Yeah.
I kind of, just watching the body language, it was kind of free and easy.
Yeah, free, easy going. She actually leaned back a few times while she was talking, right? So yes, absolutely, your intuitive hit on that was correct. So in your workbook, I have a couple of different ways, questions that you can use to tap into each of these personality areas. So let's say that you're sitting with someone you like, I think I get their extroversion, I think I know their agreeableness, but I want to know conscientiousness. I have that in your workbook for you to do on your own today, a couple workbook prompts you can do on your own. Conquering your fears, we're actually going up into the final level on the path to connection. Being socially fearless, stop feeling like a fraud, and making love to your fear. We're going to talk about 14, creating value. I'm going to teach you the 9 value languages. This is the other part of our core in the personality matrix. How to create deeper bonds and how to understand human motivation. Your challenge today is to build a matrix with an old friend. I want you to see if you can talk to an old friend, give them a call, chat with them, send them an email. See if you can figure out what their matrix is. Second is to build a matrix with 2 new people. So 2 new people, could be a colleague, could be a new friend. See if you can build their matrix. See how close you can get them, and start with extroversion until you're comfortable with the rest of them. All right, it's time to talk about what's the most important thing that we learned today. Oh, yes. Tell me.
I think I've always read people when I met them face to face. But to me, this entire day, actually, and a few episodes before that, are teaching me how to read people just from words. Something that you can do over a phone call, over an interview, on call, even when you never, ever see them. So that's kind of very interesting.
Yeah, and in emails, too. Yeah. What else? What's on the, yes?
So I think this is what I said a couple days ago, too. The reaction of the person in front of me, their cues, their verbal and nonverbal cues, don't necessarily have anything to do with their reaction to me.
Yeah.
It could be just their type.
Yeah.
So sometimes if some of these different cues might be scary, like if that person's exhibiting them, it might be sort of like scary or off-putting to me, but it might not be me. It's just the way they
their
are.
personality type is. Yeah. I love it. One more learning experience you got before we close out the day. Oh, yeah, Michael.
Take baby steps.
That's right.
Because
Start
it's
with
so
one
much
thing.
information and so
Yes.
much you need to try to read on people.
Yes, and this is also the waterfall method, right? I'm teaching you a ton of these little segments so that you can go back and sort of go through the skills one at a time. We're going to talk about how to break that down in segment 15. So we're going to talk about how to sort of break that down into a digestible format.
But we hope you'll join us for our next segment. We'll see you then.